Orson Scott Card showed up at Dragon Con over the weekend, which is something a little different. He doesn't make a ton of public appearances these days. The man's been canceled and was really one of the proto-cancel culture people out there who just got destroyed by mainstream publishing, all because he wrote an op-ed opposing gay marriage. And he did so because of his Mormon faith, because he's a conservative, and because it was the right thing to do. And naturally, that all just blew up in his face. They just took him down, canceled him from Marvel and DC, ran him out of comic books. The publishers that work with him, they still do, because Ender's Game makes so much money for them, they just can't. They can't pull it off the shelves, but they would if they could. And this is the first really person who was unpersoned in science fiction publishing to this degree. But the fans don't care. The fans are there for him. He's still selling like hotcakes, and what happened at Dragon Con is crazy to look at, which is a lot of fun. And this is a good white pill type of video, guys. I like doing positive coverage. It doesn't happen very often. Don't tune out just because I said it's positive. It is. This is good stuff. But the woke are very, very angry from what I'm hearing on the boots on the ground at Dragon Con. We'll get into the news in just a moment. My name's John Delarose. Everybody, please hit the like and subscribe button here. We cover the hottest topics in science fiction and fantasy news. Nobody else covers a lot of the stuff that we do here, and we appreciate you as a community because we know you're great readers, great people, and we know that you're opposing the nonsense that's been going on in science fiction for a long, long time, and we're at the forefront of fighting against that and stand by wonderful authors like Orson Scott Card, one of the most talented people of our time. I actually have a great book in a trilogy here called Justified, Saga of the Nano Templar, and Sanctified and Glorified, as you see there. And this trilogy, you'll love it if you're a big Ender's Game fan. I guarantee you'll have fun with this. I'm going to put this in the description below. Please check it out. Support our fiction. Grab the whole trilogy. I appreciate you guys for being there and for reading. Again, the best science fiction folk out there. It's wonderful. So, yeah, grab that as we get into this news. So I did a background on my Fandom Pulse Substack this morning, also in the description, where I talked about Orson Scott Card and just like the amazing things he's done in science fiction. I've been a fan of his since I've been about 15 years old, and I've read a lot of his books. I've read all of the Ender's Shadow stuff, the full Ender's Game and its sequels, which are, you know, once you get into Speaker from the Dead, it's really its own series. it's something completely different. Beautiful stuff. I honestly think Speaker of the Dead, I'm going to ramble a little, is a little bit better than Ender's Game. I think just like prose-wise, conceptually-wise, it's pretty wild and out there. And that's really inventive science fiction stuff that I was like, wow, when I read that. I actually hated it as a kid. I couldn't get through it because I did the battle school thing, was ready for that again, and it got hit with this 180. But when I read it as an adult, I'd say that work just is phenomenal. It really is. And I really like his Treason novel quite a bit too. So yeah, just lots of great Orson Scott Card stuff out there for sure. And he actually ran a magazine for a while. I don't know if he still does. It's called Orson Scott Card's Intergalactic Medicine Show. And I'd say the best science fiction short fiction in the 2010s got published there. It was not an Analog or Asimov's or any of that stuff. So I've been following his work for a long, long time. Never had the opportunity to actually meet the guy or talk with him. If you do watch this, I don't know if he watches content on his own stuff, but if you do, Orson, I would love to have you on an interview for the show. You're a wonderful, wonderful author, huge inspiration. But in the late 2009, 2010s, he started working in comics, which is pretty cool. I enjoyed his Ultimate Iron Man and Ultimate Iron Man 2, which I pictured here. I thought he did a pretty good job, and they did an adaptation of some of the Ender's Game stuff, as well as some a spin-off book there as a prequel. And it was a lot of fun. And then he got picked up by DC Comics to do a Superman story. And I was very, very hyped for this because I love Superman as a concept. I like the traditional hero that's like the really strong moral hero. And Card would have done a great job as that as a conservative guy. I really think he would have crushed it. Probably would have done the best Superman stories ever. Now, an online mob started going against him because he wrote an op-ed actually in favor of California's Proposition 8, which was a 2008 bill which banned gay marriage. And it did so because that was the right thing to do. He wrote a wonderful op-ed. It was not incendiary whatsoever. It was very logical. And, that really triggers the left, as we know. And so they began a campaign to cancel him within the comic book world, because comic books is really the place where you get these, obnoxious people who just yell. There's a segment of the internet called woke comic book Twitter, and everybody hates it. Even Democrats like Rob Liefeld in the industry, they'll actually talk about woke comic book Twitter and say it's a bad thing. And so people know how it goes. It's a huge cancel pig mob, as Mark Miller put it. And so this was going on back in the day in 2010, 2011. Orson Scott Card was the first victim of this, even though they didn't get a lot of attention. I mean, it did. It got some media attention back in the day. But it wasn't like now where there's a lot of people covering cancel mobs and things like that. There was nobody. It was just he got removed and purged from DC Comics. They pulled his story. They just pretended and swept it under the rug, pretended he didn't exist, gone. And from this point forward, it was very similar with New York Publishing. Like I said, in the book publishing world, they can't just remove his contracts and get him out of there. They knew that he's just too much of a cash cow for them to be able to just put out to pasture. And so even though they wanted to, he's got some books with Tor, one of the wokest publishers out there. He's got one with Blackstone, who I believe is owned by Amazon. And so they would love to just get rid of his stuff and totally do that. So what they did basically is, like, when he comes out with new books, they barely market them at this point. There's nothing there. You don't know they come out. It's all just going to be word of mouth from fans of Orson Scott Card. And they do. I mean, his books still sell very, very well, and people are very, very into his work, despite that, like, sort of soft cancellation. Like I said, in book publishing, it's a soft cancellation. In comic publishing, it was a hard cancellation. He got hit with this. It's a big deal. And Orson Scott Card didn't really go out and complain about it or anything like that. I think at that point, I mean, he's been a huge writer since the early 80s, right? And so we're talking 2010. At this point, he's probably looking to retire. He's like, screw this. I don't know. I'm guessing. I don't know him. But he really didn't come out and fight the cancel mob hard or anything. There was no way to at that point. There was no, like, support group. There weren't a bunch of other authors canceled as well. He was on his own. And so he just kind of, from the public eye perception, kind of faded into obscurity. At least that's what the publishing industry thought. Now, his books continued to sell. Ender's Game continues to be a classic. Kids continue to find that book and read it. In fact, young boys still read it more than any of the modern science fiction that they're trying to replace him with, and it drives these people crazy. The people in the industry are always like, "Why do they give shelf space to stuff like this and not N.K. Jemisin?" Well, it's because it sells and people actually want to read it. Ender's Game, I know, has moved over 10 million copies in North America. Might be a lot more than that now. It's an older statistic, but it's still going, and he still has a ton of fans. And that's the great thing, is when you're talented, when you come out with great books, when you do things like Orson Scott Card does, you have a ability to last and to make it through the cancel mobs. They don't matter anymore. They can't actually stop people from reading. As much as they try, they don't. And Orson Scott Card did a last-minute guest appearance at DragonCon. He showed up. He was in one of the Writers of the Futures anthologies with a short story. And they had him show up signing. Just came for 2 days. Was not heavily advertised. Did not get advertised by the convention whatsoever. And the line was around the block for him. People found out that Card was there, and they were dying to meet this wonderful author. Now, by all accounts, he's just the nicest man. They always want to paint their canceled victims, and he's a victim. He wouldn't say so. He's too polite, of course, but he is. They always they're hateful bigots, right? But the truth is, the people who are the cancel pigs doing the canceling are the hateful bigots. This is just a nice man. They just hate him because he's Mormon. That's all it is. That's what it comes down to. He's conservative. He's Mormon. They know it. That's a bad deal for them. It's a good deal for normal people. Most people are like, that's great. He's wholesome. And his books are really good. That's all I care about. And so he did really well at DragonCon. And I actually got a picture of the line around the block. I'm not joking. It circled around the dealer hall. You had to spend hours waiting for an autograph in a moment with Orson Scott Card. And this was a huge egg on their face for DragonCon, because they invited a guest of honor, Nancy Kress. And everybody watching this is going, who? And Nancy Kress, from my reports, had lines of maybe 50 people at her signings. And so Card outdrew the guest of honor by hundreds of people, maybe thousands of people. John Scalzi, Tor's, little soy boy who is their biggest, champion that they put out there, just signed another multi-million-dollar contract, had maybe a couple dozen people at his signing. So they were really, really upset by this. The powers that be, the authors there was a lot of chatter from what I'm hearing among the whisper network of authors that they were very upset. How dare these people go and stand in line for Orson Scott Card? Don't they know he's not somebody you're supposed to like? You're supposed to like us. But the fans aren't there for these people. All these people are completely manufactured by mainstream publishing. The fans like stuff like this. The fans like people like this. The fans understand who's doing right and who's doing wrong. And that's why the industry's been in such a spiral in the last 10 years. They've tried to cancel everybody with talent. They've, of course, we've talked about Card. Larry Correia is another one. Just has a ton of talent and a ton of readers. Canceled, right? They've in comics, Mark Miller, the guy who did the Ultimates, got canceled. I mean, he's one of the best writers out there, and why? He's being canceled just because he's not going along with their program. Mark Waid tried to cancel him the other day, and this is crazy stuff. They're hitting the people with talent because they are, and this is the hard truth about SJW science fiction. They don't have talent. They don't write very well. They're a bunch of hacks, and they know it. And that's why they always talk about imposter syndrome all the time. They are imposters. They're trying to live up to this man's great work and this man's greatness. They can't do it. And the fans know better. The readers know better. There's a reason why we're outselling 99% of science fiction just from this YouTube channel. And it's because our books are just better. And it's simple. And if we just keep going, we don't bow to the cancel mob. We don't acquiesce. We don't apologize. He never apologized, guys. Orson Scott Card might not have gone out there and fought real hard against the people canceling him at DC Comics or anything. It's too much of a professional. But he did not apologize. You just keep writing your books. You keep doing the good work. We will win. And we are winning. Beautiful stuff. I'm so glad that he's getting his due from the fans, because that's honestly the most important. Having readers is all that matters at the end of the day. And the people in woke science fiction don't have them. Orson Scott Card does. This is a white pill for your Labor Day. I hope you're enjoying your time. I hope you had a great DragonCon. If you were there, let me know. I'd love to hear from you. I love to hear from all readers, especially from science fiction fans. Hit the like and subscribe button. Join us here. Make sure to check out my book, Justified, Saga of the Nano Templar, and its 2 sequels. You can read these all in a pretty quick weekend if you're a fast reader. Love to have you on board here as well. Appreciate you for being there.